Welcome to State and Local. I'm Anne Marie Battistone. You're watching Norfolk Public Access, and I'm thrilled to have Selectman Extraordinaire again with me, Jim Lehan. We're going to talk about a bunch of things. There's been quite a lot of things going on, and Jim is here to talk about some of them. So now we have an extra.
We have a friend.
We have a friend here.
I hope it's friendly.
Well, no, it's actually bigger and taller than either of us.
I think he's grown since I've been here.
Now, let me just talk about a few things quickly. Now, but what about the elections coming up? There's a May 6th election.
Yes.
Is that just for...
local offices.
So what will that be besides the moderator?
School committee, Board of Health, Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, Town Clerk. There's a lot of
Is
opportunities.
anything unfilled?
I'm not sure about recreation. I know now there are multiple candidates for school committee, which is a good thing, although I'm not sure about the KP committee. There is a Board of Health candidate. There are candidates for Planning Board, candidates for Town Clerk. Recreation is the only one I'm really not sure of, but it's been a late signing of folks.
Okay, because
so
I noticed there were quite a few openings.
But there have been some folks rise to the challenge, which is a good thing.
Now, who's running for moderator? David Rosenberg,
Jerry St. Amand, and Jay Talman.
Jay Talman, but it's not Jeff. I guess I got a little bit mixed. Not Jeff Palumbo.
He's running for selectman.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Now, is he opposed on that?
Not as of yesterday, or Friday, or Thursday.
So that would have been Garrity's slot.
This is Mr. Garrity's spot. Yes.
So is there anything that's I guess what I meant to ask you is there anything unopposed that you know of?
Unopposed?
Yeah. You don't have
I
to
think
recite.
Board of Health, there's only one candidate. I could be wrong,
Okay.
but I think Board of Health has only one candidate. Selectman, one candidate. There are now multiple for school committee.
But I think Jeff would be great for that.
So do I.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll be there, and I look forward to working with him.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Now, how much more time do you have?
I have 2 more years.
2 more years.
Yeah.
Would you run again?
Oh, don't ask me that.
Oh, is that a no, or is that just...
It's 2 years away.
That's true. Anything could happen in 2 years.
It's 2 years away.
Now, the town meeting is going to be May 13th, a week later.
Yes.
Is that right? Now, what are some of the interesting warrant articles?
Well, the budget, the Springtown meeting is always more about finances than anything. So there'll be capital items and there'll be the budget. I can just give you a brief overview of the budget. But there is one other article that I think people are going to be very interested in, and it concerns Jane and Paul's. I don't know if folks have been watching any of the CPC meetings. If they have, you're probably aware that there's been a lot of discussion about Jane and Paul's. And I did bring a map, I think, if they can put it up, but I can fill in some of the blanks, but some of them are, quite frankly, at this point under executive session, so I can't give some specifics, but I can tell you what is public. Jane and Paul's is selling the farm. They have entered into a purchase and sale agreement with a nonprofit organization, which is a land trust out of Massachusetts, that specializes in buying farms.
Huh. Is the house still there?
They are carving out the house, and I think about 5 or 6 acres around the home, as well as a couple of other little spots. But basically where most of the farming is done, which is about 70 acres, is what will be purchased.
Oh, my.
It's an interesting opportunity. I can't disclose the financials at this time because those were done in executive session, but I can tell you that I would say that it'll come down to a basic decision. The way it would work is that CPC would have to make a contribution for the purchase. The state would make a contribution for the purchase. They in turn then would own, the state would then own the farm, and they would then find a farmer to sell it to at a very low cost to make it financially viable for the farmer with very strong restrictions that it must be retained as a farm, all of the things that you would want it to be. And this is what they do.
What about the house, though? Would that be sold privately?
I don't know. I mean, it's not under contract. They've carved out the home. And
so somebody can theoretically buy the house and live in that house.
Only if they choose to sell it.
Oh, that has to be part of the purchase?
No, they're not selling the home at this point in time.
Oh, okay. They're just going to stay there.
Well, at this point,
apparently.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, they get to make that
decision.
decision.
All right. I see. Okay.
But it'll be before town meeting in May, where all the financials will be hammered out. The only reason we can't get into that right now is there's still appraisals going on. But the appraisal process has to dictate, the appraisal process will value the property at its maximum development opportunity, which would be basically for housing. And the purchase price, I can tell you with a good deal of confidence, is going to be far less than that. And there are some advantages to why it's been structured this way and by working with this nonprofit organization, who, by the way, has been doing this since the early 80s.
Now, do they end up owning it, or does the state own it?
They own it. This nonprofit will own it with a contribution from the state.
And from the CPC.
It'll be about 1/3 state money, 2/3
okay.
Norfolk money.
Oh, okay. Being the CPC money.
CPC money,
Okay.
right. I consider that Norfolk money.
Right. Oh, yes, indeed. It is.
And it comes down to, I think folks are going to have to think of it as a basic decision. I mean, if they like the idea of retaining a working farm within the community, and it would be deeded this way in perpetuity, which means it can never be anything but.
Oh, that's good.
So there will never be development on this 70 acres of land. It can't change. It's in perpetuity. You won't be able to get it at a better deal.
Now, why would somebody not vote for that?
They don't want a farm. They don't want to spend the money to buy a farm.
And what would happen to that land then? Would
It's
somebody
the
else would buy it?
It's the owner's privilege to do as they see fit. I mean, you know, when you own something, you have a right to do with it. Within our bylaws, you have a right to do with it as you see fit.
But Jane and Paul want to go this way.
I think they've always, I can't speak for them, but it would be my guess that I think, well, they've signed the agreement with the land trust, so obviously it's something they want to do. I guess that's a fair way to say it.
Yeah. Oh, so it sounds like, oh, that's wonderful.
But it is dependent on a town vote, that the town wants to fund, you know, the difference between what the state will contribute versus the purchasing price, and it'll be, I'm sure, a fun discussion.
Yeah. I think it'll go that way, don't you?
I would be surprised if it didn't, but that's just my opinion. I mean, knowing I know the financials around it, so.
That'll be disclosed?
Oh yes, it has to be at the town, because you have to vote a number at town meeting. The only reason it hasn't been disclosed to date is that the appraisal isn't done yet, and that won't be done for another couple of weeks. And you can't formally agree to all of this until we know that it's within that limit. But there's a high level of confidence that that's not going to be an issue.
Now, will that deplete a lot of what CPC has in reserve?
Yeah, it will.
They have quite a bit, don't they?
This isn't. Last time I looked, it was in the neighborhood of about $3 million.
$3 million, okay.
Right, but this will take a good chunk of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what other articles do you think are going to be of note?
They're really, we've removed, the Board of Selectmen have decided not to put any of the zoning articles on this. There were several that were submitted, and we're not going to put them on the warrant. Zoning articles are traditionally done in the fall meeting, but that's not really the reason. The reason we decided not to put them on the warrant is that we've hired a town planner.
Oh, okay. Oh.
And that planner will be starting April 14th, actually. This is something I'm thrilled about. We have needed this position for a long, long, long time. And for folks at home, a town planner has multiple roles and responsibilities, and this planner is going to have his hands full. Walpole, for example, has 3 planners.
Wow.
Franklin has several planners. Bedford, small towns similar to ours, have planners. They're not folks that just sit behind desks figuring out how to bring in businesses to the community. I mean, that's one responsibility, but that's not really it. They will work with the DPW in terms of engineering considerations and development considerations around our water system. They'll be working with the planning board as a consultant. They'll be responsible for chairing the zoning bylaw study committee. Zoning is one of the most difficult things for folks to understand, and probably one of the most boring for people to listen to.
That's what you can put where, speaking
It's how you can develop your town. And you know, unfortunately, you know, we have, and I include myself in this, we have amateurs developing zoning laws. We need a professional. And we have, I'll give you one example. There was a zoning article that there were 3 of us discussing, myself, Mr. Hathaway, and a third party. And we literally had 3 different interpretations of what that bylaw said. And each of us firm in our position, you know. So
it could have been better written than it sounds like.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And we have bylaws that contradict each other. We sometimes do what I call reactionary, zoning changes, because something happens that, well, if we did this, then that would have happened. So we do a bylaw without thinking what the downstream implications are.
Now, why would these contradictory ones not have already been dealt with on the zoning bylaw?
Some have. Some have. I mean, some of them. I mean, we have good folks on that committee, and they've worked hard at it. But it's a full-time job. I mean, we're all volunteers, and you know, they probably meet 6 times a year, and usually only around meetings. You need someone that really understands zoning, that understands what the town wants, because zoning should reflect the values of the town. And to do that, you need to really understand it and work with it over time. And you need to find out where the connections and disconnects are in bylaws and recommend changes. And we need a professional with an unbiased view that,
Right.
that is reflecting our values, as opposed to sometimes these bylaws are initiated with agendas.
Oh, definitely.
And-
Oh,
and-
absolutely.
and that doesn't always serve the best interest of the town.
Now, when you say he's going to start in April, but he'll be at the town meeting, obviously.
Oh, yes, yeah. I mean,
Will he be
he's
introduced
he's-
there?
Oh, I hope so. He's working currently in a community down in Rhode Island of similar to Norfolk, actually, and he has some obligations that he has to complete down there. They have one major project he wants to finish, which is to his credit. So it'd be about mid-April when he starts.
Now, what is the training that a person needs to be a good planner?
Well, there are degrees in this particular
Oh.
field, and this gentleman's been doing this for quite some time. He's well experienced. This is not a novice. He's not a beginner. We felt strongly that we needed experience in this position. This is not a learn on the job, because if we had an existing planner position and we had it well structured and well defined, you could take someone with a given skill set and have them grow into that job. We don't. We don't have that job in place, and so we don't have the outline or the structure in place. So we need someone that can help us build that, which means you need a very experienced individual.
Now, did somebody sort of spearhead that? Why has so much time gone by without having had a planner? Was it put before? Did people not want to pay for it, or
Well,
did no one?
I guess
kind of a funny
I
question.
guess I'd have to say this was kind of my thing. I recognized some time ago that this was a position we needed, but it's all about money, and we haven't reached the level of comfort where we felt we could afford to bring that position into town, even though the need was dire. Just too many other priorities. I mean, we've had some tough financial years. It's getting better, but we've had some tough financial years.
Now, what exactly do they do? What does the planner do?
Well, it could be anything from working within the community to develop new commercial opportunities that fit what we want. It starts with understanding the town, understanding what our values are, what we want our town, not only what it is today, but what we'd like it to be tomorrow. And I think those values are pretty consistent. I think we know what we'd like Norfolk to be. We like our town center. We don't want major thoroughfares. I mean, we have one stoplight in town.
Right.
We are who we are.
Right.
And I think most people value that. So he needs to learn more about us. He needs to learn about our priorities. He needs to review all of our zoning. He will work with the planning board on future development.
Now, will he provide oversight on some of these boards that are volunteers?
Yes, well, not the boards per se, but the backroom operations. We have land use board support systems, and they're really not. I don't want to say they're not supervised. Well, it'd be conservation, planning board, board of health.
Oh, all right.
I won't say they're not supervised, because the boards manage their own support, but they're not unified. We haven't got one overview of the entire planning process. We don't even have commingled files, if you will. If you want to go to conservation, you get one file. You go to planning board, you get another file, all on the same project. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do better, because a lot of our systems, as in most cases with small towns, evolve. And we're a $30+ million business now, and we need to, in many ways, change some of the way we do things to be, one, more efficient, and two, more cost effective.
Now, I've heard some people, well, I know you don't like Norfolk Net, but I do. I go on it, and I know
It's not that I don't like it. It's just that it's rarely accurate.
But I heard someone was alluding to someone on one of the boards, and actually I wrote in and I said, if you're going to complain about what somebody's doing, you need to mention them. You can't just. But in any case, and so I wonder, what is there to stop, say, one or two people from commandeering what goes on in a board?
Wow, that's a tough question.
I mean,
well,
because that's possible, isn't it? Depending on.
Well, our boards are made up of volunteers and residents of the community, and to say that it's never happened that an individual hasn't gotten on a board for a personal reason, probably has.
Or with, say, an agenda that they want to go in and kind of shape what goes on.
You would like to think that it doesn't happen, and you'd like to think that other members of the board would recognize that and work with it. I think in most instances, most instances, I think the town's done very well with that. I don't think that we've had a lot of that. To say it's never happened, I've lived in town a long, long time, and I probably questioned a few things, but folks may feel that about us too. I
Because
don't
once somebody's on there, I mean, if it's an elected position, once they're on there,
just don't elect them next time.
that's
Yeah,
it.
That's it. Yeah, and that's a fair way to do it too, by the way. I mean, they're 3-year terms; they're not there forever.
Right. Still, a lot can happen in 3 years.
Yeah, but it's got to get through the whole board, and government doesn't work at lightning speed.
Right.
I mean, you meet once a month, and things take a long, long time. It's not like the corporate world.
Now, how many people did you interview for that planner's job?
We had an interview committee.
Were you on that?
I was not.
Oh.
Mr. Bugby was on that committee, who did the preliminary interviews. We had 2 members of the planning board. We had a member from conservation. We had our human resource person. We had Jack Hathaway. I hope I haven't missed someone. I may have. From the zoning board of appeals. We had a member from that board as well. So 7, 8 members, if you will. We had over, I don't remember whether it was 20 or 25 applicants.
Is that right?
Large number of applicants.
Wow.
So they reviewed all of the applications.
And you put this in the Globe and the Herald,
yeah,
or
there's a set
professional
process for
magazines
advertising.
and that sort of thing?
Yep. And so we received a number of applications. They went through the applications and selected a 6 or 8, somewhere in that range, finalists that they actually interviewed. And then from that group, they narrowed it down to 3 that they brought to the Board of Selectmen for interviews. And of those 3, 1 withdrew prior to the final interview. The town that this person was working for upped the offer, if you will, to keep the person.
Stay.
So we interviewed 2 finalists and made
Wow.
the selection.
Huh. Now, what else am I going to ask you? Now, you were talking about Jane and Paul, but isn't there something about some parcels of Gumps behind the playground?
You mean open space?
Yeah. Oh, those will be open space. Is that going to be developed in any way in
No.
terms of building
No,
a?
absolutely not. That's some more misinformation you read on Norfolk Net.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, that property was purchased. CPC has basically several priorities by law. Open space is one of them.
Right.
Conservation land, whatever you want to call it. Active and passive recreation. Active, which is a playground.
playground.
And passive could be fields, whatever.
Right.
Historical. Okay. Affordable housing.
Uh-huh.
A certain percentage of CPC funds must go to all of those considerations by law. And every year at town meeting, we vote 10% of the fund to go to each of those. So you've got this block of money that can go anywhere, but you're required to put a certain part to each. Gumps is the only project we've had, CPC project, that actually fits more than one of those definitions.
Right.
So I know some folks think that we misled. Absolutely untrue.
Because of the playground.
Well, there's this impression. Apparently, someone on Norfolk Net believes that CPC funds can only be used for open space, and it's absolutely not true. It's required by law to be used for all of these projects. So Gumps represents active recreation and conservation, open space.
In the back
and
there.
affordable housing.
Right.
So you've got all 3 of those categories in one project. Now, the majority of that land, I think it was 20 some odd acres, the majority of that land is going to be conservation. 15 plus acres will be all untouched, preserved. We're going to put trails through there. I mean,
They are going to put trails.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can talk about that in another show, because there was something else that you
beautiful
wanted to
land.
talk about.
Yeah,
The new development on Main Street. What can you tell us about any new? Because that's been on the Norfolk Net, and people say. I got the impression that people saying, "Well, we voted against this or something." Can you explain that to me? Because I couldn't.
Well, first,
I didn't really understand.
let me, you know that the Board of Selectmen is not a permitting board.
Right.
Okay, so we don't have a vote
Right.
in any of this. That resides with the permitting boards, which is basically conservation, planning board, and ZBA. If they don't agree with some of the rulings, they go to ZBA to get exceptions, if you will, which is more of like a judicial body. So the Board of Selectmen have no say in any of this in terms of the process of construction. That's all through the permitting boards. But I think what you're talking about is the bylaw that was passed in town meeting that allowed 16 bedrooms per lot in that area of town. And so there are 2 lots, 106 and 108, obviously. There are 2 separate lots. Just taking the definition of that bylaw, and I'm going to just make a simple assumption that each unit, whether it be an apartment or a
dwelling,
dwelling, a
yeah,
townhouse,
condo,
whatever.
yeah.
That each one has 2 bedrooms, just for sake of argument.
Now that's to decrease the amount of people
Well,
that would come into these houses.
Exactly. It's to control the density, is what it was intended to do. And
With the assumption that you might have at most the parents and maybe 2 children in the other bedroom. Something
who
like
knows?
that.
Who knows? But the intent of the bylaw was to encourage a development that would fit that area, that provided some level of more than one house, so to speak,
Right.
but not a level of density that would create issues and that you might have with just the property itself or traffic or entrance or whatever might be considered. The proposal that's being presented by the developers is far in excess of that. I think they're looking for 40 units. So if you just use the 2-bedroom component, you would logically think that you're going to have 8 on each parcel, total of 16.
Right.
I believe that the proposal that's before the planning board is in the neighborhood of 40 plus.
Per parcel?
Total for the 2
So
parcels.
those would have to be apartments, wouldn't they?
They can. I'm not a builder, so I'll leave it. I'm not going to get into the design because I don't.
So otherwise
I have an
they would
opinion,
have to be
but
awfully
that's
very big houses.
they're not. Yeah, they're not. Yeah. So the issue there, I think that folks are concerned about, and rightfully so, is the level of density.
So now, is there any advantage to? So what are that? Let me go back. What are they? How are they going to get around what was voted on as the bylaw for these 16 lots?
Well,
dwelling.
there are only
Per-
really
I mean,
two
per
ways that they
parcel.
could really do that, and one is to go for what they call a special permit, which would require them to go before the ZBA to get basically an exception to that bylaw. And they did do that. They went before the ZBA, but the ZBA didn't rule on it. Now my understanding is that they're withdrawing.
Either way,
They
didn't rule either
well,
way.
they didn't get a chance to, because I believe it's been withdrawn and a different plan has been presented to the planning board that would still require a special permit, but now they're only before the planning board as opposed to the ZBA. But it still requires a special permit.
Where do you go first, the planning board or the
Planning board.
Okay.
Well, it
And
depends.
if you don't like,
I mean, if you,
if you don't like what happens at the planning board, is that when you go to the Board of Appeals?
well, you go to the ZBA when you're doing something that isn't within our bylaws. If
Okay.
if you don't agree with something or you want to do something outside of the
Which
bylaws,
is what this
or
would
what
be,
have you.
right?
Correct. But if they do it a little differently, which is what they now, I understand. I'm watching the show just like everybody else, and I suspect it's being well viewed. Would be my guess. You can have it just before the planning board, but it would still require a special permit. And a special permit requires 4 out of 5 to vote yes. And to deny, you can deny for any reason. It's not, it can be black, that's simple. You can say, well, it just doesn't fit what we want. That's reason enough. You don't really have to support the decision. So they haven't gotten that far. I don't think the next step has been taken. And in fact, I know it hasn't. So it's still hanging out there.
So even though it was voted on at town meeting, and that's the regulation, you can still.
Well, people have a right to ask for anything they want to ask for. I mean, whether we agree or disagree with it's a whole different issue. But you have a right to come before any board and request whatever you want. The board's it's the board's decision whether they feel it's within the boundaries of what, 1, our rules allow, or 2, if it's not, is it in the best interest of the town? I mean, however they might choose to view it. But people have a right to ask for you can't argue with someone's right to ask for something. It's the board's obligation to weigh that in terms of what the community and the values are, and does it fit or not fit. And the other thing they have to always watch is precedent. When you make an exception here, you set
exactly.
you set or establish a process whereby the second exception becomes a little easier.
So now, do you see any? So is there anything positive in let's say they keep the 16 bedrooms per lot? Do you see any advantage to that? Would the advantage be for traffic, like you were talking about earlier, for business? I mean, what's the pro of this?
You're asking me a personal question now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not speaking as a board of
Right.
selectmen. I mean, I voted for the 16-bedroom bylaw. I think that's a reasonable level of density. It's an excellent area. We need residential within the center of town. It's a good area to do it. 8 units per area would fit nicely. It wouldn't create any congestion. It wouldn't create any of those issues.
Now that's going to be behind the ponds that are there.
It has to be behind
How
the
far
ponds.
back? Do you have any idea?
I don't know what the frontage is back there, but there is room to put 8 units. I mean, obviously they're proposing 40 plus, so there's room.
Now, would that back up against the train track there?
Yeah, that's the back boundary. Yeah.
So how far away do you think they would be from that?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't looked at the
I
plans
mean,
in that detail.
that may make a problem for selling it because people may not want that, that.
They may, yeah. I mean, again, this is a personal view.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the density that's being proposed there is in excess of what the town wants. I think the message is, that's my opinion, but that's just an opinion. I'm not on those permitting boards, but I think the bylaws got it right.
Now, this property has already been purchased?
Yes, there are 2 owners.
2 owners, okay, and they're the ones coming forward.
Well, one of the owners is coming forward. Who owns one of the owners is one of the parties involved. The second party is got a purchase and sale from the resident that owns the property now, and I'm not sure the details of the purchase and sale, but they have not closed on the property.
Now, what's the access going through?
It's only one access between the 2 pounds.
Is that road, that old road that went back in the back of the old town hall? Would that be the access road?
No, absolutely not. That goes back to Town Pond.
Okay.
No.
So they'd have to put a road through there.
No, not through there.
So how would
They
people-
can't use town property.
So how would people get back to the? do you
The
have no-
proposal has a road going between the 2 ponds.
Oh, really?
Right. That would be the entrance. It's a single entrance.
Is it that wide in between there?
You'd have to.
It seems kind of. But wouldn't that be too close to the water?
You're getting into issues that are before the permitting boards. So I got to let them answer those questions.
Because
I mean, all I can give you is an opinion, and
Yeah.
and that may be valid or not valid. I mean, I'm
going to go look on the way home because it doesn't seem like it's that far, that they're that far apart, that
They're
they
not.
wouldn't have
They're not.
the margin, because it's wetland if it's a pond, right?
Well, if it's a driveway, it doesn't have to conform to the specifications of a road.
But it's going to have to be a 2-way for people to get in and out
Of course,
of there.
sure it is. Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's an interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
But those are all things that the permitting boards need to weigh.
yeah.
And be sure that it's, one, that it's safe, 2, that there's sufficient access, that, traffic, all of those things are considerations.
And the fire engines, that they can get back there, too.
All of those things are considerations for every development that goes on. And that's all in process.
Do you have any idea so you have no idea what the price range is going to be on these or anything like that, or the level of construction or anything like that?
I don't know that it's been finalized.
Okay.
So,
Oh, well, listen, thank you
as I said, we're not a permitting board. But can I a little bit more about development, if we have just a few minutes?
Yeah.
People are always concerned, good and bad. There's good and bad about development. But one of the things that we are concerned about, our board is concerned about, is water. We are reaching or getting very close to capacity in our water system. Our water system is by most standards a small system, and the Board of Selectmen have only had authority over this for the last, I think, 7 years or so. It used to be under a water commission, and we changed this into a DPW structure and so on. And we've worked hard to evolve the system. It wasn't looped. It had a lot of dead ends. It had a lot of issues because it was sort of an ad hoc, we'll build here, we'll build there. And new developments are required to hook up on water. They're not allowed to build wells under our bylaws now. So we have an issue. We have 2 wells, one on Spruce and one on Gold. We have a reserve well. But if one of these wells goes down, we have a problem.
Let me hold you there because we've got to end now, but we're going to do another show.
Okay.
And we'll continue on the water topic. Well, thank you very much for watching State and Local. My guest was Jim Lehan. We're going to be talking later. We're going to be continuing this conversation about the water issues. I'm Anne Marie Battistone. Again, thank you for watching Norfolk Public Access.